I enjoyed being on his show, PFT PM, on Friday, completing the home and home, and he's been kind enough to call in multiple times during this NFL season and answered my request to call in today. Once again, from Pro Football Talk, PFT Live, PFT PM, Mike Florio. How are you, Mike?
Rich, I'm doing great today. How are you, buddy?
How about that? I mean, where were you? You're watching the games where at home, getting ready to go on Sunday Night Football? I mean, when that catch and that Hail Murray went down.
We're on the air.
Oh.
And I'll peel back the curtain a little bit. You know
Please.
how this goes.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys aren't on during games, so maybe you don't know how this goes. We're on air.
Oh, sure.
And I've got all my segments mapped out about when I'm going to be on, and I've got a monitor off to the side of the main return that's right under the camera. And on the monitor to the side is all the ongoing games. And I'm keeping a close eye on Cardinals Bills, but you can't focus on it because you never know when you're actually going to be on the air. I mean, you do kind of know, but you don't want to get lost in the moment and forget.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're shouting an expletive at a moment where, they've come to you on TV. So I just was kind of periodically looking up, and it's like, oh, okay, it looks like the Cardinals are going to win. And then you look up a little bit later, it's like, oh, now the Bills are driving. And you go about your business, getting your notes together, your information for what you're going to say when you're on the air. And then it's like, oh, crap, the Bills scored. Well, that's it. The Bills won. And I had a few more of those quick checks. And I finally look up and I see DeAndre Hopkins with the ball in the end zone. I'm like, please. That didn't happen. And then it was a mad scramble after that. I had to get Kyler Murray on the phone, even though we weren't able to get him during the show since we're off at 8:20 Eastern.
Right.
I had to talk to him about that play. It was just amazing. And in hindsight, the perfect quarterback to run around and buy time, to launch the throw from center field to home plate, given that he was a top 10 pick as a center fielder coming out of college if he had wanted to play for the A's.
Nice.
And the perfect guy to jump up and catch it. That's the new template for a Hail Mary. All you need is those two guys, and you can make it work.
And then just the significance. I mean, they're in first place. The Dolphins are now a half game behind the Bills. I mean, that was and the Packers are now the 1 seed because there's no three-way tie, because of what happened with Seattle and the Rams. I mean, there's quite a bit that this might linger. That throw could actually linger.
Oh, and of all teams, the Packers, who have no home field advantage this year, who cannot start the lawnmower at Lambeau Field without fans there.
Right.
3 out of the 4 games they've played at Lambeau Field this year, sluggish. Now, it's only bit them once against Minnesota, and they really weren't sluggish. They were going back and forth, but Aaron Rodgers said afterward we didn't have energy today. Well, they don't have energy because that place is empty. They're used to the Go Pack Go chant. It's so weird to hear Bang on the Drum All Day being played when no one's there. The Lambeau leap into a void of nothing, or the attempted Lambeau leap by Aaron Rodgers.
I saw that.
After he scored. Yes. And they may end up with a home field advantage in the playoffs. In the 1 year where it doesn't matter, they may have it.
Unbelievable. Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. How'd you find Murray? I mean, he it was last week where he was just despondent, saying, they laid an egg, and now just there they are a week later, 3 days now removed from kicking off Week 11 in a monster game against Seattle. What do you think of Murray, and how'd you find him yesterday?
Oh, I've got a clear bias. I really, truly love Kyler Murray, and I remember when he was making the rounds before Super Bowl 53, and he hadn't decided what he was going to do yet, and he's young. And look, your kids are a lot younger than my son, who's 24 now. Mm-hmm. As your children get older, you really start to see them in the guys who are entering the NFL. It's easier to understand what they're going through and how hard all of this must be. And Kyler Murray's personality is not the same as other quarterbacks. He's not the gregarious personality. He's not outgoing. He's reluctant. He's shy. Nothing wrong with that. That's how some people are. So you kind of got to draw it out of him a little bit. And it to me, it's an appealing quality because I know how hard it is to have to interact with people when you just rather, go home and play video games and not do it. But, he's got a passion burning in him for football. I think he's every bit as good as he thought he was going to be. The fact that people doubted him because of his size only made that passion stronger. And he told me, even though he had never connected on a Hail Mary pass at any level of football, when he let go of it, he knew it. it had a chance. He said when you're a quarterback and you let go of the ball, you know it has a chance. And even though he was facing the sideline when he let go and landed looking at his teammates, not at the end zone, he knew when he let it go it had a chance. It helped that it was Hopkins, but he knew it had a chance.
So, again, my kids are 12, 9, and 7, so I'll ask you this question. Which will I have a more difficulty explaining to my children about 10 years from now? One, that there was a legitimate question whether Kyler Murray made the right choice choosing football, or two, DeAndre Hopkins was acquired for something other than a first-round draft choice. Which will be more difficult for me to explain to my children, Mike?
Not just something other than a first-round draft pick, but the Cardinals were – you know how they do I don't know if they do this where you live, but like once or twice a year you can put out any garbage that you really don't want, but you don't know how else to get rid of it, so you put it out and they come take it. And there's somebody inevitably who's riding around in a truck that starts picking through and taking the stuff. That's what David Johnson was, all due respect, in this deal. He was the guy that the Cardinals could not get rid of with a $10 million guaranteed salary this year. The idea that they actually got value for David Johnson is jarring. I thought they were going to have to do a Brock Osweiler hot potato trade where they send Johnson to someone and throw in a third-round pick. So that makes it even more amazing. To give up a second-round pick and unload a guy that you were dying to get rid of, unbelievable, unbelievable. And, look, I understand in theory why the Texans did it, but that's the thing to remember. You trade away a player like that, even though it solves your short-term headache that you otherwise don't know how to solve, and I think this is one of the problems of having both the coach and the GM wear the same hat, because you don't have a strong second voice who can push back, and the Texans did not have a strong second voice who could push back on Billy O when he decided to do this. That guy's going to still continue to play in the NFL. He's going to go elsewhere, and it may sting you every time he does something great. That's just going to be the knife twisting in whatever bad day you had, and that was the double loss yesterday for the Texans, to lose to Cleveland and then see that happen at the end of the day.
Yeah, where they're so points challenged against Cleveland in that game. And, you know, but before moving on, honestly, the theory, again, that I heard about the reason why DeAndre had to go is because they just didn't want to redo his contract with that much more remaining, despite his remarkable talent and his 27-year-old birth certificate, right? He's just only 27. But I still don't understand even how they couldn't even tell Steve Keim, look, we're taking David Johnson off your hands. You have to give us a 1. I mean, I can get a 1 just hanging up the phone from anybody else. You know, how could you not even bluff in that regard? It's just, I can't fathom it that he wasn't even acquired for a 1 in that trade.
And this idea, Rich, that, well, we have his contractual rights for X number of additional years, and I think it was 3 more years, and we have a policy of not redoing. Well, you know what? Screw your policy. This is how you end up getting yourself into a jam. Yeah. This is the Eagles and Terrell Owens. Not quite to the same extreme.
Right.
But that attitude that teams want to wave around, well, we have a contract. Well, you know what? You got an unhappy player, too. And it's not enough to just have a piece of paper. You got to have a guy who wants to be with you. You got to have a guy who feels like he's being treated fairly. And when Julio Jones gets to $22 million a year, and you have a guy who signed his contract several years ago at a time when the market was different, you better be ready to adjust it or face the consequences of a guy who's no longer happy, and you're going to have to do something about it, and then you're not going to have the player. You have to choose what to do. And this idea that we refuse to redo the contract because they had X number of years left is just silly. Now, I think there was some, there's some personal feeling that comes into it. Bill O'Brien, an emotional guy, that's why it's critical to not thrust that guy into the role of GM. You need someone there who's the opposite of him personality-wise, who can say, Bill, look, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but we can't do this. We got to pay this guy and keep him around. We have to think of what's going to happen. We know how good he is. You think of what's going to happen if we trade him to another team, what we're not going to have and what that new team is going to have. And that's why it's so critical to have a strong voice that can always push back against the impulses of the guy who's otherwise in charge.
Mike Florio, Pro Football Talks, Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. How significant is Drew Brees' injury, do you think?
Well, I think it's injuries, which they really don't want to admit at this point. But Drew said last night to reporters after the win that he could only play in half of, that it's an accumulative thing. He had the shoulder. He's been limited in practice for the past couple of weeks. Now he's got The team called it ribs. Your colleagues Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero, I believe, reported it's a rib contusion. They're going to do an MRI to see where the cartilage damage is. And see, that's the thing. You can have ribs that aren't broken, but the cartilage between the ribs can get bruised, and it hurts just as bad as having broken ribs. The good news is you don't have to worry about the rib breaking off inside of your rib cage and damaging organs, but it still is extremely, incredibly painful. And they're bracing for him to miss time. So it almost feels like Peyton Manning 2015, where he was so banged up in various ways, they eventually just had to shut him down for a while and let him get healthy. I feel like Drew's got multiple things going on, and the only way they're going to get him anywhere close to 100% for the playoff run is to give him a few weeks off.
And so is it Jameis time, right? Last year, I remember we were having this conversation with Teddy Bridgewater, maybe Taysom Hill, and we hardly saw him. It was Teddy's gig. So this is Jameis's gig, right?
Well, I don't know, because every year teams put out depth charts, and they bend over backwards to tell us, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. The depth chart means nothing. But still, if you go to NewOrleansSaints.com right now, if you had gone last year after Drew Brees suffered his injury week 2 against the Rams, pulled up the depth chart, doesn't mean anything, but it's still there on the website. Drew Brees 1, Teddy Bridgewater 2, Taysom Hill 3. So next man up. This year, if you go right now, NewOrleansSaints.com, click on the depth chart, unless they've changed it since 9 o'clock Eastern time this morning, Drew Brees 1, Taysom Hill 2, Jameis Winston 3. So if you go next man up, it's Taysom Hill. Now, yesterday, you've already got your game plan in. You've got your Taysom Hill package in. So he's prepared to be the jack of all trades, not the backup quarterback for the game. Now the question is, going forward, do you prepare Taysom Hill to be the starting quarterback, the backup quarterback, or the jack of all trades, knowing that you won't have anyone ready to be the backup quarterback? Last year when Teddy Bridgewater was in for 5 games, we saw far less Taysom Hill because he was preparing every week to be the backup quarterback. That's the philosophical decision that Sean Payton's going to have to make quickly if they're not going to have Brees. Who's my 1 and who's my 2? But if we truly go by the depth chart that they always say is unofficial, Taysom Hill should be the guy. So it's going to be a fascinating decision because most people are assuming Jameis, but I think there's a chance it's going to be Taysom. And if I'm the Saints, I want to know what the hell the guy can do. If he's possibly my quarterback next year, if Drew Brees retires, I got to know what this guy can do as a quarterback. No, now to find out.
By the way, Saints.com, that is exactly what it says. I looked that up while you were delivering your information there in this conversation, Mike Florio. It is Taysom Hill 2, Jameis Winston 3, and I am now hitting the word allow for latest news and updates to be sent as a notification in case that changes. I mean, that is the way it is, and the Saints are taking on Atlanta this week. That'll be, as you know, that's no gimme. We know Atlanta has definitely been coming on strong of late. Ask the poll question of Mike Florio. Chris Brockman, go for it. Ask him the question.
Mike, you heard us at the top here. Which second-place AFC team best chance to reach Super Bowl? Dolphins, Ravens, Titans, Raiders.
Who do you think?
Right now, Dolphins, because they've won 5 in a row, and they're flying under radar. This is the dynamic where we didn't anticipate Tua was going to be good, so we didn't give the Dolphins a lot of high-profile, big-platform games, so people aren't seeing Tua. Not that he's been Dan Marino right out of the gates. I mean, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow arguably have been better passers, but there's just a magic to it. There's a quality to it, and the defense is good, and they're doing just enough. And, you know, the way they're trending, and I think Brian Flores learned a lot while being around Bill Belichick. And I think he's also managed not to try to be Bill Belichick. You know, you can only get away with being Bill Belichick once you start accumulating rings. It doesn't work until you've proven yourself. And I think Flores, unlike so many of these other Belichick assistants who are around him for so long, they don't even realize how much they're acting like him. You can't be him until you prove yourself. And Flores has proven himself, and he'll be in a position, the way things are going, where he can be Bill Belichick sooner rather than later, because once you get a ring or close to it, then you can be that guy that flashes from time to time at press conferences and elsewhere.
And then Pittsburgh, you mentioned Burrow. There's the latest to come at the King and missed. I mean, Pittsburgh is going to be taking on Jacksonville this week, so it sure looks like Thanksgiving night on NBC. That's going to be an undefeated Pittsburgh team welcoming Baltimore in with a game against Washington right behind it. They got a shot here, Mike. I mean, let's be honest. I know we're all thinking about how flawed this team might be, but you got Jacksonville, you got that game at home against Baltimore, then Washington. A huge Sunday nighter. They could be undefeated going into that Sunday nighter against Buffalo in Western New York, Week 14, at Cincinnati. A nice little 2004 quarterback reunion with Phillip Rivers, Week 16, then at Cleveland. There's a shot here, don't you think?
There's definitely a shot. And if it was the Patriots at this point at 9-0 with that same schedule left, that would be the top story on every show, radio, TV, and elsewhere. Can the Patriots go 16-0? I don't know why people aren't getting behind the idea of the Steelers going 16-0. I don't get it. I think part of it is so many of their wins feel like they happen, too close for call, just like the Cowboys game last week. But then they get a Bengals team that had 2 weeks to get ready, and Ben Roethlisberger misses practice all week on the COVID-19 reserve list. He has knees injury, not knee.
Right.
And I thought they were right to be upset. I just felt like it was time for them to pick up an L. And that if they beat the Jaguars on Sunday, regardless of what happens between Baltimore and Tennessee, next Thursday night, that's it if they win. Division's over. And it may already be over as a practical matter, but that division's going to be done before December. One of the more competitive divisions in football is going to be decided if the Steelers pick up the sweep and give the Ravens loss number 4 while the Steelers have none, with what, 5 games left, so 4 games left maybe. But I think that they have a chance, and it's amazing they've never been 9-0 with all those great Steelers teams of the past. And I think, Rich, my theory on the Steelers is the fact that they didn't throw in the towel last year when Ben Roethlisberger got hurt, and Mike Tomlin coached them up week in and week out to fight and scratch and claw and push and push and push and almost make it to the playoffs. I think that baked something into a lot of those guys, and now this year they've got that same mindset, but they have a much better team since Roethlisberger's back.
Mike, appreciate the time. I enjoyed our chat on your show Friday. Appreciate your visits to this one. We'll hopefully do it again real soon. Thanks again.
Anytime, Rich. Good talking to you,
Right back at you. That's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live, to kick everything off on NBC Sports on Peacock, PFT PM, to wrap it up every day. And we're right there in the middle.